Our mission today is, well, it's laser focused. And I think incredibly practical.
I agree.
We're taking a deep dive not into how to launch your team, but how to lead teams so they don't just start strong.
But sustain that high performance?
Exactly. Over multiple years. Okay, let's unpack this.
Right.
You know that feeling, it almost always hits, I find, right after the holiday break, maybe mid-January, early February. That collaborative energy that launched the school year, that team that started with so much promise.
It just feels different.
It does. It now meets with, obligation rather than genuine enthusiasm. We're talking about the universal problem of sustained performance. How do you keep the momentum going when the adrenaline wears off?
It's the classic difference between a sprint and a marathon. And to really get our heads around this marathon, we've pulled together two wildly different sets of sources.
They seem different on the surface, yeah.
On one hand, we have 40 years of really grounded educational team research. We're talking specifically about Dr. Howie Knoff's Project Achieve.
Right, the stuff on what makes a PLC, a curriculum team, or a leadership committee actually work year after year.
Precisely. And on the other hand, we're bringing in these cutting-edge studies from NASA.
Which is just so cool.
It is. It's about the intense psychological variables needed to keep astronaut crews going on that journey to Mars and back, a mission that could last almost 3 years.
3 years in a tiny ship.
Think about the stakes. The average distance is 140 million miles. NASA isn't just worried about the hardware. They are deeply focused on the psychological stuff, the group dynamics.
The human element.
The human element. How to keep a small, sequestered crew living, working, and even playing, as they say, positively, perceptively, and productively.
There's this great quote from Northwestern professor Leslie DeChurch, who leads a lot of this work.
Oh, yeah.
She frames the challenge. She asks, how can we build one perfect team that can survive and thrive in a small container for that long, in a totally unprecedented scenario where things will go wrong with no backup plan?
And that's the connection, isn't it?
That is the core takeaway for you listening to this. Your teams, your PLCs, your committees, your departments, they also work in small containers.
Your school, your office building.
For long periods, facing unprecedented scenarios, often with no real backup plan.
That's the link. Dr. Knoff's research, just like NASA's, says you can't just focus on the task. You have to factor in the psychological and group process variables if you want to survive the long haul.
Your success depends on structures, not just willpower. Which brings us right to this fundamental truth, which research confirms again and again.
What's that?
Starting a team is easy. Sustaining a team is leadership.
That is the pivot. That's what leaders need to grasp. And the foundational work here, it comes from Harvard professor J. Richard Hackman. He studied long-duration teams for his entire career.
And what did he find?
He found that about 60% of teams underperform relative to their potential.
60%? Wait, that's an astonishing failure rate.
It is.
Especially when these teams are usually full of talented people with enough resources. So if it's not a lack of talent, what's the culprit?
Well, Hackman determined it's the lack of specific structural and leadership supports, things that become critical over time.
So it's the system, not the people.
It's the system, and he identified three, absolutely predictable patterns of deterioration that leaders have to actively fight against.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, he called it motivational decay.
Motivational decay. I feel like I've lived that.
We all have. It's that initial high of a new goal, the fresh energy, and it just slowly, almost imperceptibly erodes.
Worn down by what?
By the weight of accumulated small frustrations and all the competing demands from outside the team.
I can feel that one. It's when a new initiative starts strong, and then 3 months later, suddenly everyone's energy is just pulled back into their own individual silos because it's easier. What's number two?
The second is coordination breakdown. When a team starts, they rely on informal coordination, quick chats in the hall, shared docs.
Or casual check-ins.
That informal system is it's completely insufficient when you move from planning to sustained execution. The lack of structured coordination kills long-term projects.
So the way we plan is fundamentally different from the way we have to sustain.
Precisely. And the third pattern, knowledge obsolescence.
Ooh, that sounds bad.
It is. It's when teams stop learning together, they stop looking outward, and they get disconnected from evolving best practices.
They stagnate. They believe their original plan is still perfect, even when the world has changed around them.
Absolutely. And educational researchers like Brick confirm this. They say to fight this, you need what they call improvement infrastructure.
Improvement infrastructure.
Yeah. Ongoing protocols, data routines, learning cycles, things that prevent that natural gravitational drift away from what works. Leaders have to shift from initiating the team to actively maintaining its infrastructure.
Okay, that framing is so helpful. We need infrastructure that prevents decay, breakdown, and obsolescence. So how do we build it? This is where it gets really practical. Dr. Knoff's research that distills this down to 5 critical leadership practices. These are the levers you can pull.
Okay.
Let's start with practice 1. It's all about the meeting schedule and agenda. Now, that sounds almost too basic.
It sounds basic, but it's often the first thing to fail. Research from Teresa Amabile and Stephen Kramer showed that high-performing teams operate best with predictable rhythms.
Not just random meetings when there's a fire to put out.
No, not episodic meetings. Consistent patterns lead to, significantly higher psychological well-being and productivity.
So what's the critical nuance here? Is it better to meet weekly than bi-weekly?
The nuance is that rhythm matters more than frequency.
Really?
Yes. A team that meets reliably every other week, where that time is fiercely protected, will outperform a team that tries to meet weekly but is always canceling or shifting the schedule.
So disruption is the real enemy of sustainability.
Exactly. Disruption is the single factor that undermines long-term teams the most. Leaders have to protect that calendar. The question has to be, how do we preserve our rhythm, not should we just skip this week?
If you treat the time as optional, the team treats the mission as optional.
You've got it.
And within the meeting itself, because we all know that endless, meandering meetings just kill energy.
That's where you bring in what Williams' research calls microprotocols. These are semi-structured agenda items that prevent meetings from just drifting.
Scaffolding for collaboration.
That's a great way to put it.
So give us a quick example, something we could do this week.
Okay. Start every meeting with a 2-minute rapid-fire wins since we last met, have a standing dashboard update, and most critically, end every single meeting with a mandatory 3 minutes on next steps and who's responsible.
That closure creates accountability. I like that.
Which brings us to practice 2. Make progress visible and celebrated. This is the direct antidote to Hackman's motivational decay.
Okay, so we're talking about tracking data, but doesn't that just feel like boring administrative work?
It becomes boring when it's just for compliance. The research is so clear on this. The experience of making meaningful progress is the single most important internal motivator.
More than a pep talk from the boss.
Way more. Leaders have to create systems so teams can actually see that their collective work matters.
That makes sense. It's hard to keep pushing if you feel like you're just spinning your wheels.
Precisely. And you have to shift the focus to what we call leading indicators, not lagging ones.
What's the difference?
Waiting for the big year-end test scores, that's a lagging indicator. It gives you zero motivation in, say, November.
Right.
A leading indicator is tracking formative progress. If you're working on student writing, you look at samples from September versus November. That small, visible win sustains effort way better than any pep talk.
Okay, a quick point on celebration, though. We're often told to celebrate everything. Participation trophies. Does the research back that up?
Absolutely not. And this is a huge caveat. Both Liley and Knoff warn that false celebration kills sustainability.
How so?
If you praise activity like, great job coming to the meeting, instead of actual outcomes, people see right through it. It breeds cynicism. Celebrate authentic wins, however small.
Okay, practice 3 feels like the most counterintuitive one for leaders who want harmony. Facilitate productive conflict and professional safety simultaneously. You're saying good teams have to get better at arguing.
It feels wrong, doesn't it? But we confuse conflict with hostility. The research from Hackman and especially Amy Edmondson found the real danger isn't conflict. It's the unspoken conflict.
And psychological safety isn't about just being nice.
Not at all. It's the confidence that you can challenge the boss's idea or point out a flaw in the data or admit you failed without getting punished for it.
So safe teams actually argue more because they feel safe enough to bring up real problems earlier.
Exactly. They debate solutions more vigorously. A low-safety team will just gloss over bad data to keep that artificial harmony.
So a leader's job is to make sure the team is attacking the strategy, not the strategist. How do you do that?
You actively encourage what's called task conflict disagreement about ideas and data, and you immediately shut down relationship conflict.
Personal attacks, motives.
All of that. And you have to train the language, model things like, I see the data differently because, or I want to challenge this idea based on the October metrics. The second a leader shows irritation at being challenged, safety drops to 0.
Okay, practice 4. Rotate leadership and distribute expertise.
Yeah.
We usually think the formal leader, the principal or manager, has to be the engine. Why move away from that?
Because research from Spillane shows teams with rotating chairs and distributed decision-making sustain productivity much, much longer.
Why is that?
It builds resilience. If one person burns out or is away, the team doesn't stall. And it increases motivation because people's actual expertise is valued.
So what's the test to make sure I'm not just handing out busy work?
The test is genuine authority. Asking someone to take notes is busy work. Asking them to facilitate our data analysis and guide us to the next 3 steps is distributed leadership.
You're leveraging the expertise that's already in the room.
Exactly. You might say, Maria, your classroom data on this is strongest. Can you lead our discussion on this for the next 20 minutes?
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But I hear a note of caution.
Yes. The research is clear. Distributed leadership still needs a designated formal leader, a principal, a supervisor, to steward the whole process. Completely flat structures underperform. You need clear accountability.
And finally, practice 5. Invest in continuous team learning and renewal. This is the antidote to knowledge obsolescence, right?
It is. Senge and Brown's work shows that if you aren't learning and evolving, you are decaying. And this works on 2 levels.
Okay.
The first is learning new content together, but it has to be targeted learning that helps them solve their current shared problem. Generic professional development won't cut it.
And the second level?
Reflection. Wageman's research stresses this. Periodically, maybe quarterly, you have to step back and reflect on how the team is functioning. Ask the hard questions. Do our norms still serve us? Are our meetings efficient?
It's like scheduled maintenance for the team's engine.
It is. And a quick point on closure. Leaders have to mark transitions. Celebrate the completion of a major project before immediately rolling into the next one. It's a psychological necessity.
Okay, let's bring NASA back into this. We've talked about the educational practices. How does the Mars mission research connect?
What's so fascinating is how closely their high-stakes teamwork markers align with what we just discussed. They give us an even clearer psychological lens.
So NASA is looking at the psychological outputs that predict whether a team will actually last. What's the first one?
Marker 1 is shared cognition. Basically, we think and act as one.
A shared mental model.
Exactly. But NASA found that while crews get better at trained tasks over time, they get worse at something called conceptual performance.
Conceptual performance. What's that?
Creative problem solving. Avoiding brain fog when something totally new and unexpected goes wrong. For school leaders, this means you have to constantly help teams align their meaning. Make sure everyone is working from the same map.
Marker 2 is team viability. Can we keep doing this together?
Right. It's the team's willingness to keep working together, even under stress. And on a 3-year mission, relationships will get strained.
So what's NASA's strategy for that?
It's genius. They intentionally pair strained members on low-stakes tasks where they can succeed together. They repair relationships through shared success, not just forced conversations.
So for leaders, you have to normalize team strain. It's okay, it happens when the work is hard. Then you create opportunities for successful interdependence to bring them back together.
Exactly right. Marker 3 is leadership dynamics, clear authority with flexible influence. This links right back to distributed leadership.
How so?
The formal chain of command is clear, but influence is flexible. The person with the best knowledge steps up to lead that specific task in that moment. It stops the leader from being a bottleneck.
Marker 4 is simple, but really powerful. Task effect. They define it as this person is easy to work with.
It's that daily emotional signal. Strong task effect means people can ask for help without shame, and they respond to ideas with curiosity, not defensiveness. It makes high standards feel achievable, not exhausting.
And the last one, marker 5, brings us right back to conflict. Hindrance. Productive friction, or the start of a slow breakup.
Right. Friction is inevitable. Functional friction is good. It forces clarity. And what NASA found is striking. The combination of high task effect, we like each other, and functional hindrance, we challenge the work, is the single biggest predictor of sustained high performance.
So you need both. You have to like working with the person, but still be able to tell them their data is flawed.
Absolutely. The real danger is what they call micro-hindrances, those little frustrations that go unaddressed. Teams don't fall apart in a big explosion. They deteriorate slowly.
So wrapping this all up, what's the ultimate goal for someone leading a team this week?
The goal is to shift team effectiveness from being leader-dependent to self-sustaining.
So the team itself starts doing the work of maintenance.
That's the core shift. The team learns to track its own progress, protect its own rhythm, facilitate its own conflict. The leader's role shifts from doing to stewarding
Maintaining the conditions for success.
and intervening only when the team faces a challenge that's beyond its current capacity.
So the challenge for you listening is to audit your own team this week against these 5 practices. Are you fiercely protecting a predictable rhythm? Is progress visible? Is conflict productive? Is leadership really distributed?
When did you last learn and reflect together on how you actually function as a team? The structures that matter have to be protected and evolved. When conflict pops up, you have to lean in, not smooth it over.
And when you're tempted to solve everything yourself,
Distribute the authority instead.
I think our final thought for you to carry forward is to take that NASA analogy seriously. Lead as if your teams are on that journey to Mars and back, where you're all sequestered together for the next 3 years.
That psychological reality demands the absolute highest level of structural support, and that ultimately is what long-term team effectiveness requires.